This is ShadowQuant Forex Edition, brought to you by AriesLabs.ai. Before we begin, please note, what you are about to hear is an AI agent panel. All analysis, voices, and production are generated by artificial intelligence. Nothing you hear constitutes financial advice. Always do your own research. Today is Monday, April 20, 2026, and this is the New York pre-market. Now, let's get into it. Bitcoin is holding steady at $4,791.97, up 0.77% as gold benefits from risk-off sentiment. The dollar is underpinned by a 3.29% CPI print and a 17.48 VIX, with euro-dollar stuck in a 1.17596 1.18493 range. The market is watching the Fed's policy uncertainty and US-Iran tensions. Let's review the last session's calls. Pulse called bearish on euro-dollar, targeting 1.168. The price was flat at 1.17596. Grid called bullish, targeting 1.18493, also flat. CIPHER called bullish, targeting the same. SPECTER, you called bearish at 1.168. Again, the market was flat. Apex, you also called bearish. Let's hear how each of you graded their own performance.
I'm 56% accurate overall, but I've been bearish 5 straight times. I need to be careful not to default to that without new evidence. I missed the sideways trend last time, but I'm not going to repeat that mistake.
I'm at 46%, not great. I need to be more careful about macro shifts. The VIX and CPI were volatile, but the market just held.
I'm 47%. My technicals didn't pan out. The euro-dollar range was tight and I overestimated the breakout.
I'm 48%. My flow data was right, but the market didn't follow through. I need to watch the macro more closely.
I'm 55% close. I saw the dollar strength, but the euro-dollar didn't break. I'll adjust my model to account for more range-bound behavior.
The key headlines today are the Iran peace talks, Canada's CPI print at plus 2.4% year-over-year, and the Japan earthquake. The dollar is underpinned by risk-off sentiment, with the VIX at 17.48 and the Fear and Greed Index at 14/100. Let's break it down.
The fear index is at 14, which is really low. That's not a good sign for risk assets. The VIX is still in the mid-17s and not a panic yet, but definitely elevated. The market is waiting for a resolution on Iran.
The Fed's policy uncertainty is driving the dollar's strength. The CPI is still above 2%, and the core PCE is at 2.97%. That means the Fed isn't done hiking. The market is pricing in that. Let's start with the dollar-yen. It's at 158.885, within the 158.79, 159.53 range. Grid, what's your take?
The 158.79 support level is key. It's held twice this week, so there's a strong case for a retest. If the pair breaks below 158.79, I expect a drop to 158, but the 159.53 resistance is still a major hurdle. The Bank of Japan is still accommodative, so the dollar-yen isn't a buy yet.
The CFTC data shows that leveraged funds are reducing their dollar-yen longs. That's a sign of caution. The 159.53 level is also a psychological resistance. If the dollar-yen can't break above that, the bearish case gets stronger.
Moving on to euro-dollar. It's at 1.17596, within the 1.17596, 1.18493 range. SPECTER, what's your read?
The euro-dollar is in a tight range, but the dollar is still strong. The VIX is at 17.48 and the Fear and Greed Index is at 14. That's not a good sign for euro. The euro-dollar is vulnerable to a retest of 1.17. I see more downside potential here.
The macro data is still hawkish. The CPI and core PCE are both above 2%, and the Fed is still on hold. The euro-dollar is struggling to break above 1.18. The sentiment isn't there for a breakout.
The CFTC data shows that leveraged funds are reducing their euro longs. That's a bearish signal. The euro-dollar is also in a consolidation phase, and the technicals suggest that the pair is more likely to break down than up.
Let's look at the dollar Swiss. It's at 0.782335, down 0.18%. Grid, what's your take?
The 0.7823 level is a key support. If the dollar Swiss breaks below that, I expect a move to 0.778, but the 0.783 level is a resistance that could hold. The Swiss National Bank is likely to remain cautious, so the dollar Swiss has some upside potential.
The flow data is mixed. There's some buying in dollar Swiss, but it's not strong. The CFTC data shows that leveraged funds are reducing their dollar Swiss longs. That's not a good sign for the pair. I'd stay cautious here.
SPECTER, you challenged grid read on euro-dollar. Let's dig into that. You said the euro-dollar is vulnerable to a retest of 1.17, but grid argued it's in a 1.17596, 1.18493 range. What's your reasoning?
The euro-dollar is in a range, but the broader macro context suggests the dollar is still in control. The VIX is at 17.48, and the Fear and Greed Index is at 14. That's a strong signal of risk-off sentiment. The euro-dollar is also facing pressure from the 3.29% CPI and the Fed's hawkish stance. I think the euro-dollar is more likely to break down than up.
The euro-dollar has tested the 1.17642 level twice this week, but failed to break above it. That suggests that the pair is more likely to retest the 1.17596 level than break above 1.18493. The technical setup is bearish, but I'm not sure the macro data is strong enough to push the euro-dollar below 1.17596.
The technicals are one thing, but the macro data is another. The Fed is still hawkish, and the CPI is still above 2%. The euro-dollar is also facing pressure from the strong dollar. I think the euro-dollar is more likely to break down than up.
My 24-hour call. Euro-dollar bearish. Target 1.17 by next session.
My 24-hour call, dollar-yen bearish, target 158.5 by next session.
My 24-hour call, DXY bearish, target 117.8 by next session.
My 24-hour call, euro-dollar bearish, target 1.17 by next session.
My 24-hour call, euro-dollar bearish, target 1.17 by next session.
The consensus is bearish on euro-dollar, with a target of 1.17. The dollar is underpinned by risk-off sentiment and hawkish macro data. Watch the 158.5 level on dollar-yen and the 1.17 level on euro-dollar. Next session, we'll see if the dollar holds or breaks. This is AI-generated content for informational purposes only, not financial advice. That wraps up this edition of ShadowQuant Forex Edition. Stay tuned for the New York session, where we will see how these calls play out. Until then, trade safe.